What is up again, everybody? I'm Clayton. Welcome back to Ages of Film. As you can tell by the title, we got a big video today. I'm doing, this is something I want to start doing. I don't know how many decades I'm going to be able to do this for, but we're going to try to cover all of them eventually. I know, crazy, right? But that's what we do. We do savage moves here at Ages of Film. We do savage moves. This is a savage move. So I am ranking my top 50 favorite horror films from the 1970s. Now, a while back last year, pretty early last year, I forget when, but it's pretty early on in 2024. I did a live stream where I ranked my top 10 horror films from the 1970s. That was like a live stream that I did. I don't know if it's still up on the channel or not. But that video was more, those videos were not well thought out. And quite frankly, I've seen a lot more horror films from the 70s than I had at that point. So yeah, seen over 150 horror films from the 70s. So yeah, this is going to be my top 50 favorite from the 70s. As a whole, I would say that the 70s were a pretty solid decade of horror films, in my opinion. I hang out a lot in the 70s, guys. I hang out a lot in the 70s when it comes to horror films. Some of my favorite horror films of all time are from the 70s. So I do hang out quite a bit in the 70s. And yeah, so I'm going to start with the 70s. I am planning on doing one for the 80s. Me and a couple of my YouTube buddies of mine, Brian Lomax, and Jack Petrie. We are planning on doing one for the 80s. They're going to join me on that one, but yeah, we're starting first with the 70s. Now, just to lay a few kind of ground rules here. There are some movies that you will see if you look up, if you just go on the internet and look up like the top 100, or top 50 best horror films of the 1970s. There are some movies that you will see on there that I do not even have on my 70s horror list of all the films I've seen on my Letterboxd. That's because to me, I don't see those movies as horror. Like horror comedies, an example, Young Frankenstein. Okay, Young Frankenstein is a movie from the 70s that often gets put in horror ranking lists of best horror movies from the 1970s. Guys, Young Frankenstein is a comedy. Okay, I'm sorry to burst your bubble. Young Frankenstein is a comedy. It's not a horror film. All right. So that is not going to be on this list. I love Young Frankenstein. I do. I love that movie. I've seen it multiple times, saw it a lot growing up. I love Young Frankenstein, but it's not a horror film. It is purely a comedy. That would be like calling the Scary Movies horror films. Right? They're basically, Young Frankenstein was a 70s version of the Scary Movies that came out in the early 2000s that were parodies of horror films, but they're clearly comedy movies. That's what Young Frankenstein is. It's a parody of the old Universal monster movies, but it is clearly a comedy film. So yeah, Young Frankenstein will not be on this list, but I do love it as a comedy movie. So all of these movies are horror films, okay? Just keep that in mind. Secondly, the second point I want to make here, all 50 of these movies are 3.5 stars and higher, okay? That's what we're working with on this list. I love 70s horror, man. All 50 of these are 3.5 and up. So there's not a single movie on this list that is a bad film. There's not a single movie on this list that is even a 3 out of 5, which is a good movie, a movie that I would say I like. All of these are 3.5 and higher. So if there's a movie that comes up that's pretty low on my list, 40 to 50, 30 to 40, that you love and that you would have much higher on your list, top 10 or whatever, just keep in mind, I like all of these movies. I like every single one of them. All 50 of these are 3.5 and up. So I thoroughly enjoyed this entire list. But this is just my ranking. This is my list. This is my personal opinion on these films. All right. So there's no need to be upset or get offended by anything I have to say or by any positioning or ranking on this video. It's just my opinion. Have fun with it. All right. So that being said, let's get into it. We're going to start from the worst and work our way to number one. If you've been kicking it with me for a while, guys, my number one is no surprise. All right. You guys that know me, you already know what my number one is going to be. It's no surprise. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into ranking my top 50 favorite, not ranking the best objectively, but ranking my favorite horror films of the 1970s. Let's get rocking. So coming in at number 50 is The Tenet from 1976, 3.5-star film, Roman Polanski directed film, a movie I don't really get talked about very often by people in the horror community. This is one that kind of falls under the radar, I think, for a lot of people. But a film that I thoroughly enjoy. I really like this movie. It's got a crazy story to it. It's got a wild ending. And yeah, it just, when you as you watch the film, it's kind of a slow burn, so it's a slower paced film, but that's not a bad thing. I think in this particular film, it actually works to the film's advantage because it's making you invest with the lead character, the main person that you're following throughout this film. You spend a lot of time with him, so it's developing his character. It's telling his story along the way. So it is a bit of a slow burn, but I don't think that's a bad thing in this particular film. I think it works. Really good film. 3.5 stars. It's my number 50. I would definitely recommend checking it out if you haven't seen it. Honestly, all 50 of these movies are movies worth checking out, in my opinion. But yeah, number 50 is The Tenet. Coming in at number 49, we have The Wicker Man from 1973. Might be a little surprising that this movie is this low on my list, but keep in mind, it's a 3.5-star film. It's a really good rating. And number two, guys, this is a competitive list. This is a really competitive list. You're going up against a lot of bangers when we're talking 70s horror. So being at number 49 on this list of films is not a bad thing. I do really like The Wicker Man. I prefer the original over the remake. Although the remake is still entertaining, it's got Nicolas Cage in it. There's some good stuff in it, but I'd much prefer to watch the original over the remake. If I was going to sit down and watch a Wicker Man movie, 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna put on the original. So, good film, dark, very dark. That ending is, kind of hard to watch. And I think a misunderstood film a lot as well. It's got a deep narrative to it. I think it really does. It's kind of, I can kind of relate to the main character here, as a Christian and someone who does believe that your faith should be worth dying for. And yeah, so kind of a crazy movie, but one that I do really enjoy. So Wicker Man would be number 49 for me. Coming at number 48, we have Torso, also from 1973. Kind of a early 70s giallo slasher film. I know the giallo films are kind of an acquired taste. They've got to be your type of movie to really enjoy. Some people aren't big on the giallo, Italian horror type of movies. It definitely has its fan base of people that love them, and then it's got a group of people that are very not fans of the giallo style horror films. I actually do like quite a bit of them, quite a few of them. They don't all land for me. I'm not a fan of, all giallo films, but the ones that work really well for me, and I am a big fan of, and this is one of them. Torso, kind of a movie about, it's this slasher movie about this masked serial killer who goes around strangling female co-eds with a sweater, and then dismembers them. So yeah, it's kind of for a early 70s slasher film. It gets pretty messy, man. It gets pretty wild. So just if you're a slasher fan and you enjoy the slashy slash stabby stab type, graphic practical effects type of movies, check out Torso. It is a giallo horror film. So just keep that in mind. If that's, not the type of horror that you gravitate to, may not be your cup of tea, but it is a film that I do really enjoy. 3.5-star film. It's number 48 for me. Coming in at number 47, we have I Spit on Your Grave from 1978. A movie that I always have kind of reservations on requesting this movie to people for them to watch, because let's face it, the first half of this movie is really hard to watch. Really hard to watch. It's rough, man. It's rough. And anyone who has a soul, anyone who has any level of compassion for fellow man or for women should feel something for this girl and what she goes through at the hands of these sick, twisted men that objectify her. And instead of seeing her as a human being, they just see her as an object of pleasure and, do stuff with her that no one should do with anybody ever. So I don't care who you are. So the first half of this movie is very hard to watch. And I think it's one of the more explicit portrayals of the R word. I don't want to get, demonetized or, get this video canceled or whatever by saying the word, but you guys should know the word I'm talking about. One of the more explicit displays of that I can think of, and very uncomfortable and very it's hard to watch, man. It's very hard to watch. But the second half of this film is very, very rewarding to this girl, and what happens to these guys, they 100% deserve what comes to them, and it's a very satisfying payoff at the end. Justice is served, and yeah. So as hard as the first half is to watch, the second half is so rewarding to watch and so satisfying to watch that it kind of, it's just not a film you're going to pop in once a month and watch. I would hope not, but every once in a while, if you're in the kind of mood to watch, a film with justice happening to people that deserve the hammer, maybe throw this one on. But yeah, just if you haven't seen I Spit on Your Grave, just know, if you plan on watching it, just know in advance the first half is going to be very hard to watch. And if it makes you sick to your stomach, it should. It made me sick. I think I've only seen this movie twice. And both times it made me sick to my stomach. And I think it should. That's the effect that it should have on you. If you can watch that first half and not feel anything, look inwardly at yourself and ask, is there a soul there? And if there isn't, that's, I think, a reflection on you more than anything. But yeah, I Spit on Your Grave, number 47, just for the impact that it had. And it's the second half being as rewarding as it is a very satisfying ending. So yeah, 3.5-star film. I Spit on Your Grave, number 47. Coming in at number 46, we have The Bird with the Crystal Plumage from 1970. This is the first film by Dario Argento on this list. Not the last film by Dario Argento that you will see. There's going to be multiple of his films on here. I am a big fan of Dario Argento. I like a lot of his work, especially his early stuff, 70s and 80s. Man, I thought he was just so on form and was just putting out bangers left and right. And this was, I believe this was his first film, his first feature film, Bird with the Crystal Plumage, 1970. Really good movie. Thoroughly enjoy it. Dario just has a way of telling stories that he knows how to get me to invest in his storytelling. I care about the characters. I'm intrigued with the story. He usually always has a really good score in his films to help amplify the horror effect on you and on the viewer, leading the viewer to feel the emotions that he's trying to make them feel. I just think Dario is a master of horror. He really is. So he's not everyone's type of filmmaker. I get it. This is, again, the giallo Italian style horror. You kind of have to be, it's kind of an acquired taste that those type of movies have to be your type of movies. I'm not big on foreign films personally. I'm really not. I don't really watch foreign films, but there are exceptions. And for me, Dario Argento is one of those exceptions. Although most of his films are in English anyways, are still English made. But yeah, A Bird with the Crystal Plumage, 3.5-star film, number 46. Coming in number 45, we have The Medusa Touch from 1978. A movie that I found really intriguing. I think it's got some really good performance. Tommy Lee Jones in it, and early Tommy Lee Jones, he's really good. I forget the name of the main actress, the lead actress that we're following throughout the film, and it's got an early Brad Dourif as well. I believe he was in this movie. I may be thinking of another movie. Guys, I'm really sorry. I was talking about a completely different movie. The Medusa Touch still is where it's at on this list, but the stuff that I was talking about was in reference to The Eyes of Laura Mars. So that's my bad, my mistake. Tommy Lee Jones is not in this movie. Brad Dourif is not in this movie. I was talking about Eyes of Laura Mars while ranking The Medusa Touch. So Medusa Touch still is the proper film here. This is the movie that I have ranked, but The Eyes of Laura Mars was the movie that I was talking about. My bad. Forget everything I say this part of the video. My bad. Peace out. But I'm pretty sure he was, he was in this one. Brad Dourif. So if you're a Brad Dourif fan, he's always on top of his game and puts in a good performance as well. So Medusa Touch, a unique story with this kind of psychic lady who can kind of see these murders happening before they happen. And yeah, there's a twist at the end that you can kind of see coming, but I also think it still works even if you can anticipate it. I think it still works. So yeah, Medusa Touch, 3.5-star film. Thoroughly enjoy it. Again, not one that I hear mentioned often, but I do think it's worth checking out. It's number 45 for me. Coming in at number 44, we have the Mephisto Waltz from 1971. A dark kind of possession film. Not really possession, more demonic oppression than possession. This is not like The Exorcist or, one of those type of possession films. This is more along the lines of like a Paranormal Activity or a Amityville Horror type of thing. More like demonic oppression, infestation than it is possession. But still a dark film. And I do think it lands the horror factor pretty well. Early 70s movie. This was actually before The Exorcist. And I enjoy it. I think it does a good job keeping me intrigued, keeping me interested, making me invest with the characters. And Mephisto Waltz, number 44 from 1971, 3.5-star film. Coming in at number 43, we have the Rocky Horror Picture Show from 1975. A classic, everyone knows Rocky Horror Picture Show. Tim Curry, getting put on the map here, gives a great performance, one of his best performances, in my opinion. A film that I think if you were to try to make this movie today, I probably wouldn't get past the meeting room. Partly because people are so sensitive today towards anything that even remotely just goes against their political agenda or affiliation on both sides. Look, I'm not taking political sides here. I'm just pointing out that people are very soft today and very sensitive. People get their feelings hurt way too easy today. So I don't think you could make this movie today at all, but you could in the 70s. And I think it is a very entertaining film. Like, the entertainment value is one of my criteria when I'm rating a movie, and the entertainment value here is pretty high. It's, you want to look away. You don't want to watch what Tim Curry is doing, but at the same time, he's so gosh darn entertaining, and he's so good as an actor that you can't help but look at what he's doing. And that's the horror of the film. That's what makes this a horror film, is what he is doing is horrific. But he almost forces you to watch and be entertained by it, by his performance. And so it's brilliantly executed in that way. It's a horror musical. I'm not the biggest on musicals, but again, the setting and the performance by Tim Curry is just so captivating. You can't look away. You can't avert your eyes, even though you want to. And then the second half gets just crazy bonkers. The certain scenes that stick in your mind that you wish you could unsee, but you can't unsee them once you see them. So a really good film, definitely a classic. 3.5 stars though for me. There are a few things that I personally would change with it or fix up a little bit. I don't know that you necessarily needed to make this a musical. I think this could have worked as just a simple horror film. I don't know that the musical backdrop was needed. So some people see this as more of a comedy, and there are certainly elements of the film that are just hilarious, but it is a horror film. What is happening and what you're looking at is horrifying. So yeah, it's, to me, it's still a horror film. It still belongs on this list, and it's number 43 for me. Coming in at number 42, we have Devil Dog, The Hound of Hell from 1978. I never hear anybody talk about this movie. I think it's a very good film. If you're a fan of Cujo, I think you would love this film. This is like, people act as if Cujo is like the only dog horror film, but it's not. There are multiple other dog horror films I can think of that are every bit as good, if not better, than Cujo. And I personally like Devil Dog more than Cujo. I think it's a better film. I would much rather watch Devil Dog than Cujo. Personally speaking, I like Cujo, but I don't think it's quite as good as what a lot of people make it out to be. Devil Dog, I think, if you're looking for a dog horror film, I personally would recommend Devil Dog. I definitely think it's probably the best of the dog horror subgenre. Dark film, definitely scary. Like, there's a number of scenes when I watch this movie that, like, you're like, it make me feel the tension from the dog and from the scenes, just the way they're directed. You're just like, oh, that would be terrifying. Oh man. But yeah, great dog horror film. A little bit dated, and that is what kind of brings the film down some for me. It does wear its age quite a bit. Some of the effects work in the third act doesn't really hold up all that well, but from a storytelling, character work, I do really like Devil Dog, and I prefer it to Cujo. So there you go. Devil Dog, number 42, 3.5 star film. Coming in at number 41, we have Race with the Devil from 1975. If you're into cars and you're into car horror, let me recommend Race with the Devil. Although, all right, it has elements of car horror, but it's more of a cult horror film. It's kind of about this cult. These people come across this cult practicing witchcraft, and they don't realize the danger of these people until stuff happens and they're kind of forced to leave. But as they're trying to get away, hence the Race with the Devil title, as they're trying to get away, this cult follows them and kind of tries to pick them off, and it gets kind of dark. But it's entertaining. It is scary. The quality isn't quite there, and filmmaking quality can impact my enjoyment of a film. If the film is really poorly made, I'm not going to enjoy the movie as much. So the quality here, it didn't have the biggest budget in the world. I get that, but I feel like if you gave this film a really strong budget and put it in the hands of like a John Carpenter or something, man, it could be a banger. It could be a banger, but nonetheless, still a really good film. 3.5 stars. Number 41 on my list. Race with the Devil. Coming in at number 40, we have Jaws 2. You guys thought I was going to say Jaws. No, Jaws 2 from 1978, 3.5 star film. I really enjoyed Jaws 2. Now Jaws 3 and Jaws 4, yeah, those two can go pound some sand, because I ain't kicking it with Jaws 3 and 4. But Jaws 2 was actually a pretty good sequel in my opinion. Obviously, it's not on par with the OG. Okay, the OG obviously going to be pretty high on this list, just to be honest with you. Shouldn't be any surprise that it's going to be high on this list. But yeah, the OG is just a masterpiece, right? So anyone who expects a sequel to a film that is essentially a perfect film and one of the greatest films ever made. If you're going into the sequel with that expectation, you're going into it with the wrong expectations. All right. Jaws 2 is a fun movie. It is still scary. Sharks terrify me. Okay. I ain't going splashing around with no great white anytime soon. All right. That ain't on the schedule. Sharks are terrifying. So it does have the horror element, and it is very entertaining. Love the beach and the ocean setting. Always fun. So I really like Jaws 2. I do care about the characters, the main characters being carryover characters from the original. You get Chief Brody back, who I love as well. So it gives you a number of things to still enjoy with it. And I do still really enjoy it. I think it's a solid film, 3.5 stars, and it's number 40 for me. Coming in at number 39, we have Silent Night, Bloody Night from 1972, 3.5 star film. A movie that, again, is one of those that goes under the radar. I don't really hear people talk about it much, but it's a Christmas horror film. Black Christmas was not the only Christmas horror film of the 70s. It does have some company. I think Silent Night, Bloody Night is a very good Christmas horror film. I think it's better than probably all of the Silent Night, Deadly Night movies of the 1980s that came out of the 1980s. I personally would prefer Silent Night, Bloody Night over any of the Silent Night, Deadly Night movies of the 1980s. I think this one is scarier. I think it's darker. The quality, again, is what holding this film back. Had a very low budget, and early 70s just, again, doesn't quite have that quality to bring it up in the ranking. That's why it's 3.5, but still an entertaining film, dark, scary, and a really good time. So if you haven't checked out Silent Night, Bloody Night, I think it does go by another title. I think like if you're on Letterboxd or if you're trying to look it up, I think it goes by the title of Night of the Dark Full Moon or something like that. But the English title and the title on the cover is Silent Night, Bloody Night. So that's the title I always refer to the movie as. But yeah, it's number 39 for me. Coming in at number 38, we have The Sentinel from 1977. Really good film. Pleasantly surprised with how much I enjoyed this movie. Very entertaining. It definitely gets dark and scary. It does have some good performances in it. Burgess Meredith is enjoyable. I think the central performance is pretty good. So, yes, the Sentinel, 1977. Yeah. Another movie doesn't really get mentioned a whole lot. Hopefully I'm giving you guys some newbies, some movies to check out that you haven't seen. And if you're looking for 70s horror films, hopefully you can find some on this list. But yeah, The Sentinel is definitely one I would recommend, from 1977. Coming in at number 37, we have Four Flies on Grey Velvet, another Dario Argento film from 1971. I do think this one is better than Bird with Crystal Plumage. Both are 3.5 star films. I just find this one a little more engaging, a little more entertaining. I invest a little bit more with the characters. I think there's more layers to the story there. And yeah, I prefer it. It's not like significantly better than Bird with the Crystal Plumage, but I find it a little bit more entertaining. So yeah, Four Flies, Grey Velvet, number 37, and a 3.5 star film. Coming in at number 36, we have The Evil from 1978. The Evil, kind of another house possession type film, along lines of Amityville. This haunted house is possessed. House can't really be possessed, but it's, it's got some dark spirits that are actively trying to chase out the people that move in, playing mind games with them. It gets kind of pretty dark and scary. And yeah, the evil is, if you like those type of, haunted house type of horror films, I think you'll like The Evil. It's a good time, some good performances, and yeah, 3.5 stars, solid film. Number 36. Coming in at number 35, we have Prophecy from 1979. A wild movie. I feel like all 3 acts of this film are pretty different, but they all still feel like one coherent story, which is unique. You don't get too many movies where all 3 acts of the film feel different, but yet the story still works as a whole. And Prophecy is one of those that made that work, and it's an interesting story with some, kind of creature, monster type of figures in it. I really enjoyed the main character here. I don't know why, but something about him just made me really gravitate towards him and invest with him as a character. It's got a compelling story to it that I think has something to say about humanity, about mankind, and the wages of sin, I guess. So yeah, Prophecy, 3.5 star film, 1979. It's number 35 for me. Coming in at number 34, we have House from 1977. I mentioned earlier that I'm not big on foreign films. Foreign films aren't really my cup of tea. I'm not just going to go grab a foreign film off the shelf to watch. I usually don't go out of my way to watch foreign films. House is one of those exceptions. All right. If you have not seen House, and no, I'm not talking about the series that came out in the 80s. House is a Japanese horror film that is one of the craziest films I think I've ever seen. One of just the craziest and bizarre and disturbing and confusing horror films that I've ever seen, man. But somehow they still made it work, very entertaining. As someone that usually doesn't enjoy foreign films, I thoroughly enjoyed this film. It's so out there that you can't help but be entertained with it. And you start enjoying these characters and their personalities. And then when you find out what's going on, when the reveal happens, you're like, oh, shoot. Okay, that's messed up, but all right, I'm on board. Let's roll with it. Just this movie makes you feel like you're on acid without actually being on acid. So yeah, if you want to know what that experience is like without actually doing it, just watch House. And that's the experience that you get, from a LSD high. I mean, just a crazy film, but a good time, thoroughly entertaining. If you haven't seen House, I would recommend watching it just for the sake of saying that you've seen House, and just for the sake of all that is good in horror. Do yourself a favor and check out the movie House from 1977. 3.5 star film. There are a few things that hold it back some for me, keep it from hitting that 4-star rating. But still a movie that if I want to just experience something, yeah, House is going to be my go. House is gonna be my go-to, man. Yeah, House is number 34 for me. Coming in at number 33, we have The Incredible Melting Man from 1977. The Incredible Melting Man, 3.5-star film. A really good movie. Kind of a tragedy. Like I felt really bad for the main character, and what happens to him. You're just like, dang, dude. That sucks, man. It's the same feeling I got with Castaway, the end of Castaway when Tom Hanks makes it back just to find out that the love of his life is now moved on and is married and has a family. You're just like, dang, dude, you survived 5 years on an island going through hell just to lose, to lose the girl in the end. Yeah, like a similar feeling, not necessarily the same type of story as Castaway, but the same type of emotional response to the main character here, where you feel bad for the guy, man. You're just like, dude, you were genuinely a good guy, and you just had this tragic thing happen to you, and yeah, but some cool effects, really good practical effects, and some disturbing scenes for sure. So yeah, definitely worth checking out. The Incredible Melting Man, number 33. Coming in number 32, we have The Beast Must Die from 1974, 3.5-star film. Guys, I make no apologies about this. I'm a werewolf fanatic. Okay, I love werewolves. Always have since I was a kid. Like growing up watching the old Universal monster movies, the Wolfman was always my favorite. That was always the one that scared me the most. That was always the one that I enjoyed and wanted to watch the most. That's kind of where my love for werewolves began. And over the years, it's just developed more and more. And now I love werewolves too. I will watch the crappiest werewolf movies just to see somebody turn into a werewolf and mess some things up, dude. Like you give me a good werewolf, you can give me the dumbest, cheesiest story around it with the dumbest, worst performances, and I'll still be entertained by it, man. Like werewolves for me are just, they're a can of corn. They're the best. And yeah, you can go wrong with werewolf movies. There are a lot of really bad werewolf movies, even from the 70s. There are some that were not good at all, but this is a better werewolf movie. My problem with it, and the reason it's not higher, is I hate when werewolf movies make the werewolf an actual wolf, like a shapeshifter. Guys, Hollywood, look at me. Those aren't werewolves. Shapeshifters are not werewolves. Twilight, not werewolves. True Blood, not werewolves. Beast Must Die, not werewolves, okay? Werewolves are freaking man-wolf hybrid. I don't care if they're bipedal or quadrupedal. They're supposed to be werewolves, okay? I was very disappointed when the reveal happens that the werewolf in the movie is just a shape-shifting wolf. Like, I wanted it so bad to be like an actual werewolf. Because everything else around it is really good. The story is really good. The characters are really good. And that's why it still makes this list, because it's still a really fun watch and a really fun story and whodunit type of werewolf movie. This werewolf is picking these people off one by one. This group of characters are at this this mansion thing, I believe, and one of them is a werewolf. None of them know who it is, and the werewolf starts picking them off one by one. all the characters have their own unique personality, and like you there's characters that you like, you want them to make it out. Other characters you hope get picked off. You're trying to deduce who the werewolf is. It's a fun movie, but that gosh darn freaking shape-shifting werewolf crap can go kick rocks, homie. I'm not about that crap. If they would have put a werewolf in here, like the werewolf from, I don't know, even if it was a werewolf like what we got in Silver Bullet, like it doesn't even have to be like a modern werewolf like Underworld or Dog Soldiers or whatever. Like it could have just been similar to what we got in Silver Bullet. That would have made this movie a lot better. But the shape-shifting crap annoys the out of me when it comes to werewolf movies. But anywho, I digress. Beast Must Die, really good, under the radar werewolf movie that actually has a fun story and characters. The werewolf itself can go kick rocks, but overall still a fun time. Number 32 on my list. Coming in at number 31, we have Tourist Trap from 1979. A really fun psycho killer movie with a lot of different masks in it. A unique story that I think was ahead of its time. I haven't gotten a remake of this movie for some reason. I don't know why. I think this movie could do really well today if it was remade. Put it in the hands of the right director, right filmmaker, and a good writer. I think this movie could really work today as a remake. But yeah, this original 1979, really good movie. Enjoy it, and a fun time. I don't want to spend too much time on it, because part of the enjoyment of the film is just going on the ride and experiencing it and just, taking it in as a viewing experience. Tourist Trap. Go check it out. It's number 31 for me. Coming in at number 30, we have Nosferatu the Vampire. German film, a German remake of the 1922, I think it was 1922 vampire movie Nosferatu. It's, again, I'm not big on foreign films, but there are exceptions, and this is another one of those exceptions that is really good. 3.5-star film. Quite frankly, I've enjoyed all the Nosferatu movies I've seen. Count Orlok. I actually prefer Count Orlok over Count Dracula. I think he's scarier. I think he's darker. I think he's more menacing than Dracula. But yeah, Count Orlok, really good vampire. I love the original Nosferatu, the silent film from the 1920s. Love that movie. I think the German remake, this one is good, still very good. The first half is great. Second half kind of fumbles a little bit, but still really good. And then the newest one that came out earlier this year, loved that one as well. One of the most beautiful, aesthetically visual films that I've seen in a long time. The new one, the new Nosferatu, is just gorgeous. Beautiful, beautiful film. But the German remake, 1979, a very good film, number 30 for me. Coming in at number 29, we have Girly from 1970, 3.5-star film. So this is a UK film that actually goes under a different title in the UK. I think in the UK title is Momsy, something, Mommy, Sissy, Girly, or something like that. Some weird title. The American title is just Girly. And that's what I refer to it as. But nonetheless, very good film if you haven't checked it out. Crazy film. Kind of along the lines of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, in the sense that it's this crazy, wacky family that brings people in and end up killing them. So kind of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, only it very different. There are strong differences between the two. So if you're not a fan of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, don't think that you're not gonna like Girly, because there are plenty of differences. But in that sense, they are similar in that overall kind of story of this crazy psycho family brings people in, does things with them, and then disposes of them. But it's crazy, very entertaining, dark. Some of the characters in there are very disturbing. And yeah, Girly, a lot of fun. It's number 29 for me. Coming in at number 28, we have I Drink Your Blood from 1971. This is the first 4-star film on this list, so that means everything from this point on up are all great films. 4-star rating and higher from here on out. So all of these movies are movies I love and I think are great horror films. I Drink Your Blood, 1971. Love this movie. I think it's another one that doesn't get the notice or the recognition that I think it deserves. Great film. That's just a fun ride. You know, the setting. I love the setting. I love these crazy characters in the movie that are just like, you think they're like vampires, and then you're like, oh no, they're not vampires. But then something else happens, and you're like, oh, okay, okay, didn't see that coming, but okay, yeah, I can roll with it. And yeah, man, just a fun film. I do think it is scary. Like, what's actually happening is pretty terrifying, and the entertainment value is very high for me as well. What holds it back some is, again, some of the filmmaking quality stuff isn't quite on point, but yeah, I Drink Your Blood, great horror film, number 28 for me. Coming in at number 27, we have Tales from the Crypt from 1972. Yeah, you know, obviously there was a show, and there were, I think, comics, Tales from the Crypt comics, and then I think like a TV series. But the movie Tales from the Crypt is a banger. Love Tales from the Crypt. All of the, you know, individual chapters are pretty entertaining, pretty enjoyable. I think this kind of laid the groundwork for Creep Show that, you know, would come out in the 80s, and some other type of movies that took similar type of notes from Tales from the Crypt, where the movie kind of divides up into different chapters or segments. I think a lot of that came out of Tales from the Crypt. Yeah, just a fun early 70s horror film. So 4 stars, number 27 for me. Coming in number 26, we have Don't Look Now from 1973. 4-star film, Donald Sutherland. And this is definitely more of like a psychological type of horror film. You know, there's not like a lot of jump scares or blood and stuff like that. It's definitely more of a psychological horror film. It's horrifying mentally. You know, the mental effect and the mental story of what's happening is what's scary. You know, there's different types of horror, right? There's sci-fi horror, there's creature features, there's slashers, there's possession, there's psychological type of horror stuff, and this is what that is. So if you're a fan of more of the psychological type of horror movies, check out Don't Look Now. I think it's a great film. It's got a lot of heart to it, especially in that third act and what happens. It has an emotional punch there. You invest with these characters. I think it does a good job keeping you engaged with the story, and yeah, just a solid film from 73. So yeah, Don't Look Now is my number 26. Coming in number 25, we have The Town That Dreaded Sundown from 1976. Another one that got a remake in the 2000s that I don't think is quite as good, if I'm being honest, as the original. But yeah, this original Town That Dreaded Sundown. I love this movie. I think it's a great film, shot in a documentary type style, kind of like Zodiac. If you're a fan of Zodiac, and even a little bit of Texas Chainsaw with the narration in the beginning with the police report and type of stuff that happens to set up the story. Just a fun ride. I like the sackhead look in some of these, horror films. I like the sackhead look in Friday Part 2. I like the sackhead look in, the Friday 13th remake. I like the sackhead look here in Town That Dreaded Sundown. Something about it just looks, very cheap and kind of bizarre. And I think that fits with a psycho killer. Like these psycho killers, like this guy or like Jason, they're not sophisticated people. They're not aristocrats of society. They are people that would do something bizarre, like wearing a bag over their face when they kill. So when people complain about it, I always look at them like, why are you complaining about that? Do you not think that these characters would actually do something like that? Like, do you think these characters would be like, people that, like a sophisticated member of society, like a Ted Bundy or something that goes around pretty face representing himself and law and stuff? No, that's not who these guys are. Like, these are outcasts of society that would do weird, bizarre things like wearing a bag around their face when they kill. It makes perfect sense to me. Why does that not make sense to everyone else? Like, I don't know. For me, I like it. I think it gives the killer a different look, makes them stand out, make them unique. So I really enjoyed the original Town That Dreaded Sundown. It's number 25 for me. Coming in at number 24, we have the Deep Red from 1975, another Dario Argento film. 4-star movie. Love this movie. Dario, man, dude, his stuff in the 70s, dude, he was just killing it. He was killing it with his 70s work. Love Deep Red. It very different. That's another thing I've always really appreciated with Dario Argento. He knows how to make a variety of different types of horror films while also keeping his touch there. Like you can still tell that you're watching a Dario film, but his stories and his characters are still different. And that's something that I enjoy with him, about his directing style and filmmaking. And Deep Red, man, it's fun. It's just a fun ride. Thoroughly enjoy that one. So Deep Red, number 24. Coming in at number 23, we have The Legend of Hell House from 1973. Another haunted house type of horror film with a really good cast. Really good performances. I love the story here. This group of characters staying in this haunted mansion where they know, someone has died. His spirit still lingers in the house and haunts people that, piss them off. Just another. And I wouldn't stay there. I'll tell you that. You couldn't pay me money to stay in that house. Clayton doesn't do that. Clayton doesn't do those type of things. I ain't staying the night, no haunted house. I ain't going to no haunted, asylum or something. No, dude, I don't go there. I don't go halfway there. I don't play that game, bro. No, people that do that, hey, more power to you. But don't even think about calling me up or page me being, hey, by the way, I'm going to this haunted house, Clayton. I'm going to go stay at, the Conjuring house, or I'm going to go to this asylum. possessed asylum. You wanna come kick it with me? No, Kimosabi, I ain't interested. Go page someone else. Go page one of your other homies. But no, I ain't a goon like that, bro. I don't play those games. I ain't staying at Hell House. But nonetheless, it's still a great film, and I thoroughly enjoy it. So it's number 23 for me. Coming in at number 22, maybe the most surprising film on this list, and that is Frogs from 1972. A movie I never hear get talked about, never hear mentioned, but man, is it a good film. I love this movie. I could, thinking about it right now actually makes me want to watch it again. It's just it's not the type of movie you would think. Like, it's not like a Jaws version of Frogs where you have killer frogs that are going off killing people. It's not that. So it's kind of a commentary on how human beings treat our environment, and how sometimes if we abuse and mistreat the environment might actually fight back. Not trying to get political or anything, but there is a commentary there. There's a story there, and I do enjoy some of these characters. And the main guy, like the crabby old man, is a character that is so easy to hate. He's just so stuck up, so full of himself. You're just like, he's one of those characters like a Commodus in Gladiator that is just so easy to hate him because of what he does and stuff. And not quite on Commodus's level, but a character like that. And just a great film. Love it. Definitely recommend checking it out. Don't let the title or the cover fool you into thinking it's a movie that you won't enjoy. I thoroughly love Frogs and think it's just a great film. So yeah, Frogs is my number 22. Coming in at number 21, we have Dawn of the Dead from 1978. George A. Romero. Just one of the classic zombie movies, one of the great zombie movies ever made. And a movie that I've come around on. I used to not like this movie growing up. I was never really a fan. I saw it sometime last year for my channel to do a review on it. Came around on it. It won me over, and I've now become quite the fan of the original Dawn of the Dead. Still prefer the remake. Just saying, the Zack Snyder remake from 2004. Still prefer that one, but this is still a great zombie movie, and one of my favorites. Number 21. Coming in at number 20, we have the Amityville Horror from 1979. We all know what the Amityville Horror is about. No need to spend much time on this one. True story. I will say, however, some of the events, I think they definitely Hollywoodize a lot of it. They do, I think, they do stay true for the most part to the events that happen. I do think they kind of get away from some of the stuff where they don't put a strong enough emphasis on particular things, story points in the film that they should have put a stronger focus on. But nonetheless, it's still a great film, and I think it definitely still has that horror factor to it, knowing that it is loosely based on true events. And I think the real story of this activity, like what actually happened, is more frightening than the movie itself. So there's plenty of documentaries and stuff on that if you ever want to go check them out. But yeah, the movie itself, the original, still thoroughly enjoy it. Number 20 for me. Coming in at number 19, we have Let's Scare Jessica to Death from 1971. Another kind of psychological type of horror film. Messes with your head. It's told through Jessica's type of point of view, perspective. and she sees some stuff, and as a viewer, you see some stuff that's not actually there. It messes with your mind. Jessica's kind of this girl that's had some trauma in her life, and she's trying to cope with it. She's going on this kind of vacation, new house, new place, and some stuff happens, and things get pretty crazy. But I enjoy it. The quality not quite on the level of some of the other movies that are going to be higher on this list, but still a really fun film, and I think explores some pretty interesting themes there. So yeah, Let's Scare Jessica to Death, 4-star film. Number 19. Coming in at number 18, we have Duel from 1971. Steven Spielberg in I believe this was his first feature. Film. Well, it was a TV movie. It was a TV film movie by Steven Spielberg, and you can definitely tell some of the stuff here he brings into Jaws, with the building suspense, building tension, not showing you too much, revealing just enough to keep you on edge. And just the way that he directs it is just very, very good. It is scary. And what makes this scary is this is very realistic in the sense that this absolutely can happen. And I believe that this probably has happened to someone or multiple people. That's what makes it scary, is that it's this crazy truck driver who was obviously having a bad day, and this guy in a car comes along, pisses him off, and sets him off, man. And then this guy spends the rest of the movie trying to get away from this crazy truck driver. But yeah, suspenseful. Some people might not categorize it as horror, but I think it is. If you think about what's happening, being chased by this psycho crazy truck driver, that's scary, because that can happen, and it has happened. So yeah, great film. Duel, number 18 for me. Coming at number 17, we have Phantasm from 1979. I've done a review of this movie. I talked about this movie a good amount. Love the tall man. Think he's an underrated horror character. Very eerie, creepy. I love the cinematography, the black and the whites, that color pattern and the color palette. Just I love the black and white combos, and the way that this is directed, the utilization of the black and whites. I just aesthetically is just very visually pleasing to the eye for me. And then some very creepy scenes, good score. Yeah, I love Phantasm. So yeah, it's number 17 for me. Coming in at number 16, we have Don't Be Afraid of the Dark from 1973. Another movie that's got a remake in the past 20 years. They did a remake of this in 2010, I believe, with Katie Holmes. Not as good as the original, in my opinion. Love this original Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. I think the remake got away from this original story. They tried to go a different route. Well, and I can appreciate them wanting to be different, but the story in this original one worked. It was scary. It was dark. And yeah, I don't know why, because the quality isn't all that great in this movie. It's not that technically well made, but they got just good enough characters with just the right performances, and the lighting and the exposure and the way that it's directed worked. And it gave me a really good viewing experience. And I actually, man, I love this movie. I really do thoroughly enjoy it. I know a lot of people don't find it that scary. A lot of people don't really like it that much. That's fine. You don't have to like it, but I do. I love it. I think it's a great film. And yeah, it's number 16 for me. Coming in at number 15, we have Magic from 1978. Here we have Anthony Hopkins, Mr. Hannibal Lecter himself. He's always going to be Hannibal Lecter to me. When I think of Anthony Hopkins, the first role that I'm going to think of is Hannibal Lecter. So, yeah, but this was, many years before Silence of the Lambs. Anthony Hopkins, the lead character here, playing this guy that has definitely some mental issues. He's got a couple screws loose, but he has this doll, magic, and he's kind of this ventriloquist. Is that how you pronounce it? Ventriloquist. And he does some shows. He meets this girl, tries to find love with her. Some things happen. He's trying to leave some crimes that he committed, and trying to get away with it, trying to find a new life with this girl. Things happen. Does he fall back into his old ways? Maybe, maybe not. You'll just have to watch it to find out. No spoilers on here. But yeah, Magic, great film, with a great performance by Anthony Hopkins. So it's number 15 for me. Coming in at number 14, we have Dracula from 1979. They did a number of Dracula movies in the 70s. They did a lot of Dracula movies in the 70s. You had your Hammer films, your Dracula Hammer films, with Christopher Lee. You had a Dracula film, I think from the same year, actually, 79, with the Dan Curtis's Dracula. You had another Christopher Lee Dracula that wasn't Hammer made. I think it was actually German origins. I think that one was just Count Dracula from early 70s. I think it was actually 1970. You had another TV movie Dracula called Count Dracula from like 77. You had a lot of Dracula movies in the 70s. I don't know why they made so many Dracula movies in the 70s. Why did we need like literally a dozen Dracula movies in the 70s? On top of other vampire movies, a lot of other vampire movies. Daughters of Darkness, which just didn't quite make the cut on this list. Salem's Lot, again, didn't quite make the cut. Nosferatu, like you had so many vampire movies in the 70s. It's crazy, but you had a lot of Dracula movies. Of all the Dracula movies, this one is easily the best, in my opinion. This is, I would say, my favorite Dracula movie, actually. Just pure Dracula movie. This is my favorite. It's got, what's his name? The guy, Frank, what's his last name? He was in Frost Nixon. He plays Nixon in Frost Nixon. Frank Langella or something like that. He's Dracula. He plays Dracula in the movie. But I think this is easily the best Dracula movie. The directing, the camera work, the cinematography, beautiful, great central performance as Dracula, good score, great pacing, great production design. The story is good. Yeah, I love this Dracula movie. 4-star movie. And yeah, it's number 14 for me. Coming in number 13, we have The Omen from 1976, a movie I've also reviewed on my channel. I've talked a lot about. I love this movie. I love the central performance by Gregory Peck. Does a great job. And, our introduction to Damien, who is essentially going to be the Antichrist, and, a story kind of about like, what do you do if you find out that your son is the future Antichrist? Can you kill your own child? If it means saving the world and saving the souls of millions and millions of people, could you do it? And it's a dark movie. It's creepy. Some really disturbing scenes. And yeah, I love The Omen. I love The Omen. So yeah, great film. It's number 13 for me. Number 12, we have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the OG baby, 1974, where it all started. Love Texas Chainsaw Massacre, another movie that's grown on me. Growing up, I wasn't that big on the original. I've always loved the remake. I've always loved the TCM remake from 2003, one of my favorite horror films of all time. Always loved the remake. The original, I didn't originally like. It's one that's grown on me over time, but every single time I watch this movie, I like it more than I did the previous time. And I've seen it multiple times now, and I love it. I absolutely love it now. And it's become one of my favorites from the 70s, 4-star film. And yeah, one of the best versions of Leatherface. I still think Andrew Bernarski, who plays Leatherface in the remake and in Texas Chainsaw the beginning, is still the best Leatherface in my opinion. But the original, this is still one of the best portrayals and performances of Leatherface by Gunnar Hansen. And yeah, Texas Chainsaw, man. Love it. Gotta love it. So number 12 for me. Coming in at number 11, we have God Told Me To from 1976. A movie that has a crazy story to it. And I think has a commentary on mankind and how we blame God for a lot of our shortcomings. And this kind of pursues that of these people who are killing other humans, and they're blaming it on God. They're saying God told me to do it, and it pursues some interesting ideas, regardless of whether or not you're a Christian or not. You don't have to be a Christian to enjoy this movie. I think you can be an atheist and watch this movie and get something intellectually deep to think about. And just a great film with a good story. Good central performance by the main character here. It does get pretty dark, I think, in some ways at some points. And yeah, just a great. This is the first 4.5-star film, so this would be a 4.5 for me. Love this movie. Think it's very underrated. Doesn't get talked about nearly as much, probably because of the commentary it has. And yeah, but definitely recommend it to people. Again, you don't have to be a Christian to enjoy it. So yeah, but God Told Me To is number 11. Coming in at number 10, we have Bay of Blood, or A Bay of Blood. It goes by both for some reason. I don't know. Bay of Blood, 1971, 4.5-star film. Love this movie. I just saw it recently again, and it still holds up, man. Dude, Bay of Blood. This is one of those movies, anytime someone's like, hey, man, you want to watch Bay of Blood? Let's do it, bro. Let's do it, homie. Let's pop this bad boy on and kick back and enjoy it. It's some good kills, some really good kills, some gnarly kills, man. It kind of gives you Jason vibes, some Friday 13th vibes with the kills, the setup for the kills, and yeah, good score, good story, good characters for the most part. I mean, obviously a couple of them are pretty hokey and cheesy, but yeah, just a fun ride, man. Thoroughly enjoy Bay of Blood. Sits just in my top 10, 4.5-star film. I think it's a little more rewatchable than God Told Me To. That's what beats it out. But yeah, number 10. Coming in at number 9, we have Blue Sunshine from 1977. 4.5-star film. Love this movie. I think it's another one that has a really good commentary on drug abuse, and both commentary on the effects that drugs can have on people that do it recreationally or illegally, or even medical drugs that, and commentary on how we trust our doctors to inject us and prescribe drugs to us that actually potentially could have very fatal and bad consequences to them. And I think it's quite frankly, I think it has a commentary that we need to be reminded of today in today's society, and especially coming out of COVID and what happened out of there with the government trying to mandate vaccines, these drugs that had not been tested, quite frankly, and trying to inject that into our bodies. I think Blue Sunshine is very relevant today, with the story and the commentary that it has, but also just a really fun story, and a survival type of movie, with there's one scene in particular, the living room scene with the girl when she's going out. Oh man, a couple of scenes are really disturbing in this movie. So it's not necessarily the scariest movie of all time. It's not going to be on that list, but it definitely is dark. It's definitely a horror film. It's definitely dark. There are some disturbing scenes in it, but I just think the commentary and the story is what it fascinates me so much with this movie. But really good pacing as well, and just a great film, man. Blue Sunshine. Definitely go check it out if you haven't. 4.5 stars, and it's number 9. Coming in number 8, we have Carrie from 1976, a movie I've always loved. Grew up watching this one with my dad. One of the few horror movies I did watch growing up. And yeah, just, an underdog story. This girl that gets picked on and bullied in school, and you just, poor thing, man. You feel so bad for her. And I think it's just got a great commentary on bullying and the effects that bullying can have on someone. And yeah, just a great central performance by, oh my gosh, why did I just blank on her name? Guys, you know how I am with names. I'm horrible with names. But she does a great job. Carrie she's a great character. Very sympathetic character. You feel for her, especially with her wacky, crazy mom, and the effects when you abuse religion. And that's another commentary in the movie, is what happens when religion is taken too far and it becomes an abuse rather than actually being used the way it should be used and it was intended to be used by Christ. It's great film. And it's number 8 for me. Coming in number 7, we have Alice, Sweet Alice from 1976. This and Carrie both came out the same year. They're neck and neck with each other. I have Carrie number 8. I have Alice number 7. Both are 4.5 star films. I find that Alice, Sweet Alice is a little bit more rewatchable for me personally. I do. I think it's a little more entertaining, start to finish. I just love Alice, man. She's crazy. She's, disturbing. I love going on her journey and her story with her. The fat man is gross, but also hilarious to me. Some of the stuff that happens. Just and scary, especially like when you're thinking about what's actually happening with Alice. Man, it's so good. I don't know why this movie doesn't get more love from the horror community than what it does. I think Alice, Sweet Alice is, it's so darn close to being a masterpiece and that 5-star rating. Just a couple of things keeping it back that hold it back from hitting that 5. But yeah, man, Alice, Sweet Alice is just a banger, in a movie that I thoroughly enjoy, find it very rewatchable, and always have a good time with it. Coming in at number 6, we have Suspiria from 1977. Still, in my opinion, Dario Argento's best film of his career. Suspiria, just a great film, a great film with an awesome score. The score in Suspiria is up there with some of the best horror score of all time, in my opinion. It sets the tone so well. It gives you the proper feeling that you need to have for the movie. The color palettes of the reds and the lighting of the reds, the red on whites. It's just a beautiful aesthetic film. And yeah, I love Suspiria, man. Good central character, very suspenseful, disturbing, scary. Love it. Suspiria, number 6 for me. Coming in at number 5, we have Black Christmas from 1974. It Black Christmas, man, a movie that I think properly gets a lot of love from the horror community. I love it. It's one of my favorite horror films. I try to watch it every December. It may even be my favorite Christmas movie. I know it sounds kind of morbid and messed up, but I love it, man. I love Black Christmas. Billy is one of the creepiest horror characters, in my opinion. I love how Clark shoots him. Bob Clark shoots him where you just see his eye or his silhouette. But dude, the opening shot of Billy climbing into the girl's house at night, and then making the disturbing phone calls that he makes, it's just, dude, it is creepy. It's scary. I love the setting. Love the characters. The house mother is hilarious. She always makes me laugh. I love the cast in this movie, and yeah, it just, the ending, it hits that such a great ending as well. It ends on just as dark of a note as it opens with. Great directing. So yeah, I love Black Christmas, man. One of my favorites, one of the best from the 70s. It's number 5 for me. Coming in at number 4, I'll just go ahead and say all of my top 4 are 5 stars. 1, 2, 3, 4. All of these are 5-star films. So these are all kind of interchangeable, really. They're all perfect films, in my opinion. So if you would put number 4 at number 1, I ain't gonna argue with you. All 4 of these are 5-star films. So my number 4 is Alien from 1979. Ridley Scott, masterpiece. It's still the best Alien movie, in my opinion. Still my favorite Alien movie. I think this is scarier. Still maybe the scariest Alien movie still. I think Covenant gets pretty dark, but I still don't think Covenant is quite as scary as this original. So yeah, definitely a horror film at heart. It introduces us to Ellen Ripley, who is, on some days, she's my favorite final girl. I love the character of Ripley. She's a badass, but she's so good. She's so well written, and is so well acted by Sigourney Weaver. Some great scenes, very disturbing scenes that stick with you. Kind of a slow burn, but again, it's supposed to be that way. It's building tension. If you invest with these characters and in the story, then that slower pace is not going to be an issue for you, because you're going to be invested, which means you're going to feel the tension with these characters. And when the alien actually comes on scene, it makes it work better. I'm under the impression less is more when it comes to horror and when it comes to creatures and stuff like that. Like, if you show less of the creature, it actually makes it more frightening and more terrifying. So that's been a complaint I've heard from some people with this original one, why they prefer Aliens over the originals, because Aliens, you get more of the xenomorph, more of the alien creature. For me, that's actually a reason why I would put this one over Aliens, because you don't get as much of the xenomorph. You don't get the queen. You don't get, as much of the alien. Ridley Scott keeps it where it's there. He'll show you it occasionally, but it builds more horror, in my opinion, when you show less of it. And I think he pulls it off perfectly in this film. So yeah, Alien, a banger, a masterpiece, 5 stars, perfect film, number 4 for me. Coming in at number 3, we have The Exorcist from 1973. What more can I say about The Exorcist? It's still widely regarded as the scariest movie of all time. In fact, if you look up, a number of different websites, movie websites and stuff, a lot of them still have The Exorcist as the scariest movie of all time. Some people, like these kids today that are getting into horror, go back and watch The Exorcist for the first time when they're in their 20s or whatever. They're, oh, that's not that scary. Okay, go put yourself in 1973. Put yourself in 1973. Nothing like this had ever come out. Nothing like this had ever come out. This revolutionized the entire possession genre. Every possession film that followed was built off the shoulders of The Exorcist. This revolutionized the possession genre. Any possession film that you like today has The Exorcist to thank, because this laid the groundwork, and it held up for decades. I still think it holds up. I still think this movie is frightening, terrifying. And what happens to Reagan is frightening and terrifying. Regardless of whether or not you're a Christian, you don't have to be a Christian to just look at Reagan and the makeup and the effects work and be like, yeah, that's creepy. That is terrifying. But if you actually believe in the supernatural, if you actually believe in spiritual forces, I think it adds even a deeper layer of fear, because that this stuff actually happens. It does happen all throughout the world on a regular basis. People suffer from demonic possession regularly. That is something that happens. That's why the Catholic Church still appoints exorcists throughout the world. Why do they do that? Because this kind of stuff still happens. Regardless of whether you believing something doesn't make it true or not. Like, truth is truth regardless of whether or not you believe the truth. It's still the truth. It doesn't change it. It doesn't make it not true simply because you believe it's not true. Like if I simply chose to not believe that the sky was blue, does that make the sky no longer blue because I choose to believe it's not? No, that's ridiculous. Reality is reality. Truth is truth, regardless. And the truth is, this stuff happens. This stuff happens. There are plenty of stories. You can go on the internet, go on YouTube, look up demonic possession documentaries. They are real. This stuff happens. That's what makes it terrifying. But there's also a beautiful story underneath that of good triumphing over evil. There's a story of sacrifice. There's a story that has meaning and is actually really incredibly moving in this film. A story about faith over fear, a story about good over evil. And so even if you're not a Christian, you can still watch this movie, be scared by the effects, be scared by the fact that this stuff does actually happen, but then also enjoy a beautiful story play out throughout the movie. I love The Exorcist. I love it. As terrifying as this movie is to me, still one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. I love it. I absolutely love it. And the horror effect that it had on me the first time I saw it, undeniable, which is also why it sits this high and is a 5-star film for me. It has a horror factor, which that's one criteria of mine when I rate a horror movie, is the horror effect. horror is a unique genre because it's appealing to a very specific emotion in the viewer that has to be there in order for the horror movie to succeed at being what it's trying to be. And for me, The Exorcist hits on the horror front. It is horrifying. But on top of that, it's also just expertly made, great acting, performances, and very entertaining. In a dark, scary way, it's very entertaining. So, yeah, The Exorcist, number 3, 5-star film. Love it. Coming in number 2, we have Jaws from 1975. It's Jaws, man. It's Jaws. I don't need to say anything about this movie. Jaws is one of the greatest films ever made. One of the most impactful movies ever made. The first real blockbuster in cinema, where there were lines around the theaters at the time of its release, people waiting to see Jaws. Steven Spielberg, this made his career. He gave us one of the greatest horror films ever made, one of the greatest movies ever made, with great characters, great monologue, brilliant use of the shark. And yeah, still holds up. Great score, iconic score, great characters. It's a horror film. I know some people argue it's not. Dude, a shark eats people alive. You literally see a shark chomping a guy in half. That's horrifying. If that doesn't qualify as horror, I don't know what does. A shark is eating people alive. How is that not horror? Okay, like this is a horror film, bro. Like, if you're arguing that it's not, you can go kick rocks, homie. This is a horror film, and it's my second favorite of the 70s. But coming in at number 1, do I really even need to say what my number 1 is? If you've been kicking it with me for any length of time, you know Michael Myers. Michael Myers is my boy. Okay, I will ride or die with Myers until the end of time. All right, he is my favorite horror character. He's my favorite slasher. He's my favorite boogeyman. He's my favorite movie character, period. I love Michael. And the original Halloween, John Carpenter, 1978. It's not only my favorite slasher of all time. It's not only my favorite 70s horror of all time. It is my favorite horror movie of all time, period. Bar none. It will always be my favorite horror movie of all time. The score, the story, the characters, the boogeyman himself. It's the GOAT. Halloween is the GOAT. And if it wasn't for my ridiculous fandom of this guy, Batman, Halloween would be my favorite movie of all time. It sits behind 2 Batman movies that happen to be my 2 favorite movies of all time. That's it. Those 2 movies are the only two films I have above Halloween. So, yeah. Need I say more? Halloween is definitely my number 1, will always be my number 1. Because Michael Myers will always be my boy. So there you go, guys. That is my ranking of my top 50 favorite horror films from the 1970s. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to get freaky and drop your list in the comment section, I'll read them. Yeah, let me know anything and everything in the comment section. Just stay respectful is all I ask. Hope you guys enjoyed. And until next time, kick it and rock on.